most underrated voice in all media, Chuck Ocelli.
31st day of May, 2022, allegedly, according to that thing we call a calendar. And guess what? This is the show you were looking for. How do I know that? Because you're hearing me say this. Tears Day, Tuesday, the second broadcast day of the week for the Ocelli Effect, but we do start the week with Bob Wilson on Sundays. So what can I tell you, except that most of you will catch us further on down the stream and all that good stuff. So I know it's probably a different day and time for you. Anyway, no matter who you are, where you are, when you are, welcome. So now that I've gotten all that out of the way, usually I have Christie Aphrodite on for the 9 o'clock hour, the second hour of the Ocelli Effect on Tuesdays, right? That's become a routine lately, and we've gone all over the place. I mean, we've talked about teas, tincture, flowers, power, and, of course, all things healthy in nature. Oh, and a little gardening and maybe a little bit of advice here or there about things that you could look at for yourself and examine for yourself, none of it being medical advice, etc., etc. Why am I doing all this now? It's 1 hour early because I've got Christie with me an hour early, and I'm glad to, and she's going to be here for both hours today because at least when other people cancel on me and stuff, my friends will fill in. So, and Christie is my friend, but also responsible for creating this wonderful garden there in Arkansas and all that good stuff. Christie, how you doing tonight?
Man, has it been a week already?
You know what? It has, and I don't know if the dogs are going to bark and interrupt, by the way. I've already heard at least one yip-yap out there. So who knows what thing might occur here during the show.
Hey, I'm game for anything. And I was just talking with my friend last night, actually, about how when I used to be in radio every day a week, every day during the week like you are, like every day was one day. But when it's once a week, it just, whoa, it goes so quick. And you're like, holy crap, you become really aware of time quickly. I mean, holy crap. I literally feel like we just did the show 2 days ago. And then I know we're going to be here 2 hours and it's going to feel like 5 minutes. And then we're going to do it again tomorrow. And somebody's going to tell us there was a week in between. We're going to be like, what?
Well, what? Time flies when you're doing something that is either satisfying or happy or really productive. I got to tell you, time flies by for me.
That's true.
Even sometimes when I'm not happy, but I'm really busy and I know I'm accomplishing something.
Right, that's true.
Yeah,
because it's not always happy. You know what I mean? When you go out and see that your chicken drowned itself, or people die a lot when you're raising animals, and then some of them poop in places they're not supposed to, and
right.
destroy. So yeah, but you're right about the busy work. I guess that's what it is, because yeah. So I'm going to enjoy the moment. I don't even know if we're I do want to say this. Mm-hmm. So I've had more indoor internet time today than I have in literally years, and I'm going to blame you.
Oh, you're going to blame me? Okay.
I'm absolutely going to blame you, because I'm all about blaming and shaming my loved ones,
It's cool, because I'm very accustomed to women blaming me for a lot of things. So go right ahead.
It goes around. I totally get that. But no, so I turned on your site earlier, and then Jack Blood was playing, and I'm like, oh man, this is great. It just felt so good to hear his voice again. And then you came on with Mike Swanson, and I'm like, man, I want to say, number one, you guys are all awesome, and this is not lip service. It just really made me feel like home, like back in the old days. I felt really comforted, because you all just have, you're great in radio. You almost always have the right things to say, and then So I'm like, oh, wait, Lady Maga? Okay, gotta check that out, right? And I had no idea what to expect. And I'm not all the way done with it because I had to keep putting it on pause so that I could go get my work done, and I was just loving every minute of it. So, I mean, really, you're doing a great job here, and I'm honored to be here, and I'm glad that I can be here early sometimes when you need or want. So yeah, and I don't know what we're talking about, and I don't care. We can go anywhere or answer questions. A lot of people have had a lot of questions lately, and hopefully they start to come here. So because, as you mentioned, my very big gardens, and I counted, I have 33 animals now, so I guess I'm officially Illuminati.
Uh-oh.
And yeah, it's a lot of work, and I don't know how many plants, but I'm sure it's some other Illuminati number. Maybe it's like 322 or something, or 223 or whatever it is.
Right.
But yeah, I'm just happy to be here. So whatever happens, happens.
Very
and flower power.
Absolutely. No, flower power was the focus for a couple of weeks, and who knows, maybe it'll be tonight's focus. We'll get there. But I actually thought of you on Friday night because I had Aaron come back and Uncle come back, and Uncle was talking about how he's having this problem when he goes out to the desert with his digestion, basically. And it was too funny because I sat there and figured it out. In a couple of minutes, asked him a couple of questions. I thought of you. And I was like, okay, here's what your problem is. And it was very simple. You know, he's thinking he feels a little weird because of the higher elevation. I'm like, yeah, you got to adjust. But that's not the problem. You're taking a long drive, right? Yeah. And what his deal was is that he was having, you know, a bit of a too much of a movement for him. It was too drastic. When he got there, he had to go to the bathroom really bad. And he was thinking it's a higher elevation, and I'm like taking apart the whole thing, and no, it's a simpler answer than that. Aaron's wife keeps getting Uncle fast food on the way there. So they take a long drive, and he's eating fast food, and this is what is making him poop.
Yeah, I can't imagine how that would cause any digestive upset in any way.
Yeah, well, but that was it.
And I've never been on the road, so I truly would have no clue.
Yeah, well, if anybody doesn't know, that's an inside joke, but actually more like an outside joke, because
yeah, I've been on the road more than even a lot of truckers, honestly.
Right.
So.
Well, you've been on the road, and you've also been on the road. I mean, if there's
right, I've been on, a road and the road.
Right.
And many roads.
Well, as have I, but not nearly as much as you. I don't have the travel experience, nor do I have the ability to move about as independently as you have.
Well, you don't really need it because you already know what you're going to experience. Fast food, constipation, digestive upset, shocked bladder.
Right.
You know, inability to sleep, and so there you go. We saved you from ever having to go do that.
Oh, I know it. And you know, just a couple of rides in the back of a box truck because they throw me in there with the equipment. I got to tell you, it's.
Are we there yet?
Where are we?
Are we there yet?
This is Buffalo. You open the door. Holy crap! There's 3 feet of snow out there. Yeah. Is the show canceled? All right. Anyway, that's my road experience. And yeah, indeed, if you get out there and you go from really, really too hot in the back of the box truck to all of a sudden freezing cold, you also are standing in, waist-high snow and you need to pee. And it's a weird, situation, but why did I go into that? All right, doesn't matter. The point is that there's a lot of things.
You just made me think of a trip to Vegas in the back of a hatchback on a sunny day.
Ooh.
I'm 6 feet tall. That sucked ass.
Yeah, I always forget you're the same height as me.
Yeah, I'm a giant, I guess. But not really so giant out here, I don't think. But yeah, I'm pretty much taller than most people, I guess.
Yeah, only woman that comes to mind to me that was taller than that is my first wife. She was 6'3".
Wow.
Yeah, so.
I have met a couple. It's like amazing. Like there was a 6'4", just freaking strong, rockin' woman. Like, whoa, how does that even happen?
No, I got you.
It's amazing.
Is that weird? By the way, is that weird when a tall woman gets around, like a woman who's generally always the tallest woman in the room? Does that feel weird when all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, I got to actually tip my neck up a little bit to look at this woman? I mean,
It really did. And I grew up on the border, Chuck, so I was naturally taller than 99%
of everybody.
Percent of the people I grew up with.
Right.
So yeah, when I remember this one chick when I moved to Missouri, probably a decade ago, and she stood up and I was like, what the okay, this is hilarious, and I'm not trying to name drop because I'm not like that at all, but I don't even remember his name, but some famous football player. Oh yeah, he was hot, Steve Young. But we were playing pool together, but I didn't know that's who he was at the time. And we're sitting down, and then he stood up, and I would just, I kept looking up. I'm like, oh my God, you're like freaking Paul Bunyan.
Right.
And yeah, so it's not often where and you know what? Everyone in Hollywood and celebrities and everyone I've met, they're way shorter than on screen. But he's one that was not, for sure. And then, of course, the Russian and Rocky, Dolph Lundgren, he was definitely as tall as they made him look. And I don't even know why we're talking about this, but yeah, it's amazing. I love that humans are different, and some are tall and some are short and some are brown and some are, I love the differences in humanity.
Right. Well, we all are different, and that's an interesting thing because look, there's a lot of people out there that they sell you a program, they try and tell you, and they mean well, some of them, that look, this is a great thing that you got to do. I was really inundated. The whole reason why I think I came to that conclusion is because I was inundated with these commercials. Okay. What is I don't even want to name the product, but it's really weird. It's got a weird name, and it's pretty much just about your bowel movements.
Dr. Duty.
Something like that, but it was it was like Zoo Poop or something.
I had to actually interview him.
Really? Okay. But
back in the WBAM stuff.
I got you. Yeah, but the thing is, you run across these people, they've got a good idea, but then the rest of what's built around them, it's kind of weird. Well, anyway, these guys, they run this YouTube and other commercial that mainly I keep getting it on YouTube, but other places every once in a while it'll just come at me a lot about bowel movements. So and now you're noticing a theme. But the point is that they come up with this one size fits all solution, and I always have mixed feelings about that because the truth is, most of us one size fits all kind of works. We can all sort of eat. Yeah, these are all things that we can generally eat or whatever. But the truth is, if you have a very particular issue, you probably got there in a very particular way. And that means that, guess what? There's going to be nuances in there. There's going to be certain things that are maybe good for everybody else, but not you. Or the other way around, something that's great for you, but doesn't really work for everybody else. And you've always got to look at yourself as an individual. And
there's definitely that, but never is fast food good for anyone.
Oh, no. I definitely wasn't saying that.
And most people with bowel issues or digestive issues, they don't have the best diet, right?
Right. So, Anyway, I was thinking about something, though, because before we went to air in the chat room, right, somebody was asking, who you were and what it is you talk about, because they've come and gone on the show and they're not fully aware of you. So I said, well, she talks about gardening and natural solutions and natural medicine, and also she talks about eating healthy. So he said, eating healthy is a good idea. This was in the chat room, by the way. Which we do have live at Ocelli.com, and you can always roll it back if you want. And it's also, by the way, mirrored at ChristieAphrodite.com. That's the same chat room. Anyways, he was saying that, I like salads, but they don't always fill me up. And I kind of gave him a half an answer about that. Because there are some people that tell me, I like salad, but I don't get full that way because blah, 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 blah. And usually it's because, first off,
Dutch Boy Platinum Plus. It's only paint. It's only paint that comes in an award-winning twist and pour container. It's only paint that will transform your den with just one coat of salted lavender into a writer sanctuary. It's only paint that will help you become TV's hottest writer, where you'll meet this guy.
Hey.
Who starred in That Thing.
Now that's a twist I didn't see coming.
So yeah, it's only paint. Only easy opening, smooth pouring, change your life both professionally and romantically paint. Dutch Boy. Only at Menards.
They're using, at least here in America anyway, and this guy's not in America, so I don't know this for certain, but usually they utilize, lettuce and that iceberg stuff,
right?
Which doesn't really provide a lot of substance. It's pretty much like the water in the equation.
I'm salivating. Let's totally talk about this.
Well, but that's the thing, is if you turn around and you load that salad bowl with other stuff.
Right. You've seen my salads, I guess, on Twitter, maybe.
Oh, I've definitely seen your salad. I mean, I want to talk about this, and I also want to talk about tea, because you posted some very cool stuff on social media about tea. What, today or yesterday, right?
Yeah, I posted another quick tutorial.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I've done them before. Nobody watches them, but then people still ask. So I'm like, Twitter's quick. I could turn on a camera for
they're like
20
2 minutes
seconds or a minute.
Yeah, they're like, but the total video is maybe 2 minutes long. Is that what it is, or is it?
Yeah. Like 2 1-minute videos.
Oh, 2 1-minute videos. Okay. Either way. So I figure we'll touch on salads and teas and see where it goes from there. And if anybody wants to, make a comment in the chat room or whatever, they can do that. So we've got another hour and 40.
I love it. And I'm glad that, because, again, one thing we all have in common is bowel movements, right? And I'm actually one of those people that asks my friends, especially my trucker friend who ended up keeping a log for me because he couldn't.
A log.
He couldn't.
I've never heard that before.
Like when I asked him, he's like, "Why are you asking me this? I don't remember." I'm like, "What do you mean? It's for your health, and you're telling me you feel sluggish,
Right.
So let's talk about it." And it kind of became a thing, and it is important to be eliminating toxins, right? And not doing that can affect everything in your entire body. Mm-hmm. All right, so yeah.
Well, that's
I'm glad
the thing.
We're talking about that.
If you're
Good topic. Thanks.
Well, and there's the thing that ties with the commercial and everything I was talking about is that sometimes, you're carrying around extra weight. It is literally waste that has not worked its way through. That's some of it. And other times there's a bunch of things in there that cause problems in and of themselves. But the thing is that if you start utilizing things like salad and you make them a meaningful part of your meals for the day, you might discover that you're not quite as hungry and you are putting in some good things, but you got to make the right choices based on your individual situation. So some of the things to put in salads a lot of people forget about are beans. There's various types of beans.
Roasted corn, avocado, egg, nuts. I love nuts. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. I almost always put, especially in my favorite this time of year salad, which just happens to almost always come with homemade blue cheese and croutons, but I put walnuts and apples. And oh my God, it's amazing. Yeah, there's so many things you can do. I think when people think salad, they're thinking of iceberg lettuce and lemon or something. Yeah. And boring. And iceberg lettuce has no nutrients. Like the fact that people are even eating that to begin with just shows our level of disconnection from nature. And I'll tell you what, anyone that has a patch of grass or whatever, unless of course it's sprayed or you're living in a golf play or something like that. Right. And almost everyone is within a 10-minute walk to picking so many delicious, nutritional, wild edibles that can help build a very dense salad that you're not going to feel hungry with, and you'll definitely be happy in the morning with your number 2.
Well, see, and that's the thing, is that there's two things immediately that come to mind that you could add if you really want to insist on having the leafy stuff in there. And by the way, salad doesn't necessarily have to be fully leafy.
No.
Onions are a good thing.
I love onions. I put them in all the time.
Onions are a good thing. Now, some people think they're just for flavor, but, a couple of different kinds of onions can actually have different benefits health-wise. And, definitely flushing and getting rid of anything that you have put in your body that's now built up. Onions will help you with that. Another thing, though...
And even if you're growing onions, for example, and they're not ready, you can keep chopping the scapes off, just like you can with garlic, right? So, yeah, you don't have to wait until grocery store onions or you get to town or whatever.
Well, and I do like cabbage in there. I got to say, cabbage is a good one. Especially, I actually like it when it's in chunky pieces. You get chunks of cabbage, that's good. But there are various greens that are, again, growing wild in most places. Now, of course, your experience might vary depending on your location. But almost everywhere, there are some greens that you might be able to pick up, well, from your yard that you could put in that salad. That do you a lot of good and have all sorts of benefits. And we've talked about this somewhat with the weeds and obviously the dandelions. I bring that up because it's just one of those things that seems to freak some people out. Like, you can eat those? Yes, you can.
It's kind of like, I called it the gateway herb, and it opens people's eyes to the possibility of this stuff growing right next to it. Right.
Well, let's talk about the stuff growing next to it. If you need to have green and leafy in your salad, how can you identify that sort of stuff? And obviously, again, the caveat is you don't want the thing that's been sprayed with weed killer or whatever. If it's got, a constant toxic exposure to car exhaust or whatever. No, you don't want to eat the stuff in your driveway. Okay, you know what I mean? Like, don't pick the stuff growing out of the cracks in the cement in your driveway or coming through your stones, all right?
Right, but you can. Let's say there's a really cool weed growing there that you want to keep. Let it grow and go to seed and then plant it in your soil for next year.
Sure, because by the time it goes through that process, you're going to have something that's not totally exposed to exhaust and stuff, okay? But, but how could we identify stuff that's, like, okay, so I go outside, I'm in my yard, and it's in a fairly controlled area. There's not excessive, animal poop on it necessarily or anything like that. Right. It's just growing wild.
Always when you're foraging, make sure you're in a safe spot, toxic, whatever, automobile, fumes or oil or dog poo or things like that, right? And that it's legal and that it's invited, right? So provided that it's not your own yard. So, because I believe it or not, and especially in the country, if you start picking stuff on somebody else's yard, you don't know what's going to happen. So ask for permission if it's not your own property, but how to identify them. Honestly, the two best ways in my experience are, one, wherever you live, Google or use whatever search engine, blah, 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 you use, and type in local, whatever your city is, right? Weeds found in Macon, Georgia. And then they'll come up either some university extension reports and tons of weed killer places, businesses that will actually give you a pretty good education. But, there'll be a photo and a name and a description. So from there, when you recognize the photo, that now you know the name, right? So then you can search more, and also so that and another best way here in 2022 is a plant app on your smartphone And I use Picture This. I got that when I first moved here and started walking around and wanted to know all the things I didn't know. And I just want to say, just because you now know what they are, you have to take into consideration your personal medical history. If you're on any medications, you have to look up contraindications. And I just had this conversation yesterday with somebody on Twitter who asked, like, a general question about high blood pressure, what would I recommend? I said I can't recommend anything without knowing about the person, because even simply mentioning grapefruit or garlic could, kill the person, right? And then I posted a link from FDA.gov, and I know it's a government site, and we've talked about that before, and also PubMed.gov. Like, if these things are going to hurt you, you need to know this ahead of time. That being said, if you are in, at least like moderate health and not on any medications, almost, and I learn something new every day, Chuck, so I'm kind of blown away at this revelation. But I'll just say this. There is not one single weed that I've been able to find in my yard that does not have scientific, verifiable evidence, again, backed on PubMed.gov, about its efficacy against cancer. Every single herb that is in my yard growing right now has documented, proven, tested evidence of their abilities for that. So I know that we've limited our weed conversations to things like dandelions and ones that people recognize. But if we want to talk about salads, and, I'm going to talk about the other ones growing next to the dandelions, now that you know how to identify them. And hopefully this will just open up a world of possibilities. I'm not saying, go out there and harvest your salads every day, unless you want, unless you experience the benefits. But many things that we've been taught, like evening primrose, for example, like, it's known for its seed oil, right? But you can eat the flowers and the leaves, and, echinacea root, or, for example, you can eat those leaves and flowers in a salad. Or even, we briefly mentioned, like, peonies and other beautiful flowers like that, evening primrose flowers included, and I'm saying those because they're blooming off the hook right now. They're daisies even. I've been putting daisies, leaves and flowers in my salads the last couple weeks, since there's, quite an abundance. And so nature is kind of a well-designed organism, or, I almost said well-designed machine. I don't know what we are, but I know that we all work together, and we are all a piece of, something greater that works in harmony. And when we start to eat seasonally based on what's growing in our yard or nearby around us, we're entering a different level of health. And see, I'm mentioning this because we are part of nature. There are seasons for a reason. Things grow at certain times for a reason, like all of these spring herbs. They're all cleansing. It doesn't matter what you pick out there. Dandelion, chickweed, dock, clover, echinacea, daisy, anything that's growing right now, except for the maybe 2 poisonous herbs that you'll never run across. Really, water hemlock, looks similar to Queen Anne's lace. If you don't know, don't touch it. Other than that, even things like morning glory, and, and don't go picking wild berries and all that mushroom and things if you don't know. In fact, don't pick anything if you're not 100% sure. But I'm telling you, there is a pharmacy out there, and exactly what we need is out there at any given season. So the closer we get to that, and even if it's only picking 2 dandelion leaves to stick in your burger in place of lettuce, I don't care. Whatever it is you're doing is better than everything you're not doing. Mm-hmm. So, and I do advise people to start that way. And if you're an iceberg lettuce eater, then use your iceberg lettuce and then add some of these other herbs in it, right? As you get to know them and experience the benefits. And, then one day you're going to be an addict like me.
There you go. And, I did what you said and decided to put into a search engine weeds that are around me. And, I go to this site, which I'm not suggesting go to this site, but I'm just saying it took me top site to something called Liquid Lawn. Now, Liquid Lawn has it in its mind to tell you how to, cultivate your lawn.
To eradicate, right?
But what they have is a guide about identifying weeds. And it appears to me as though
they give you more information than you can get anywhere. And here they're trying to convince you to kill them. But yeah, for finding out what's in your area and learning to identify, that's like the best source.
Yeah. So you got to learn to use the things they give you against them. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Again, PubMed and yeah.
So here's the thing,
so
right?
Then now that you have the name, then go to PubMed or even just a general medicinal value of evening primrose, and even sites like WebMD and other. I can't remember all of the, famous doctor-run sites or whatever, but they have just listed like every other drug and interactions and possible medicinal value, and they even put their own links to science-backed research.
Right. So here's the interesting thing, right? The first thing that comes up is American burnweed, all right, which is very common. And this is a generalized guide. And again, these are people trying to convince you to kill all this stuff. But they identify it, they show you pictures, they explain where it came from, all this kind of stuff. And you go down the list a little bit. And I came to something that I wanted to ask you about and see if you knew about, which is Carolina geranium. Now, there are a lot of kinds of geraniums, right? That grow in different parts, especially in America, but Carolina geranium is one of them. It doesn't just grow in the Carolinas. And I was just curious because it looks like the kind of thing that could be leafy, could be a garnishment, and that's what it looks like. Now, I'm not saying that it is, but if you take a look at it, right, and you say to yourself, okay, this looks like it's something. Now, you could investigate each one of these things, especially if you recognize it by the picture and you say, okay, I know what that is. It grows around me, and you could start to see it. Like I said, it's you got to work with your individual situation. So anyway, what about the geraniums? What do you know about geraniums in general, and what are good to add to the salad, let's say?
Okay, so there are many types of geraniums, and I don't know enough about all of the types to say if they are all edible or not. So whatever one you come in contact with, including, ones that you can buy at the garden store, make sure what type of geranium you're using. And by the way, Chuck, I'm glad you mentioned that because I have a ton of it in my yard and I always let it grow. I just haven't used it for medicine yet because, well, one, I don't need to because I have other types of geranium, and two, because I'm just only me and I don't even have the space to harvest and but I do let it grow and I don't pick it or pull it anyways. But that being said, it is also known to have medicinal value, the same as almost everything else out there, anti-inflammatory and antioxidant and antibacterial and antifungal properties and natural cleansing properties, okay? All of these are blood cleansers because you need that in the spring. That's why they're growing in the spring after, say, a sluggish long winter by the fire or whatever, right? And people get buildup and stuff. So that's why nature plants things like Carolina geranium, chickweed, dandelion, yellow dock, etc.
Right.
So, yeah, they are edible, and they grow like crazy. So, if you have them, I would just add a couple leaves on your pizza or whatever you're making for dinner.
Okay, fair enough. But let's just say, and let's just use it as the example. And by the way, none of this was planned or anything, so we're going at this as you hear it. So I want to look at the Carolina geranium. All right, now again, I'm picking this specific example. What would you suggest I do? Okay, I recognize this is around me, so should I go straight to a different place? What should I do with that thing exactly?
Yeah, so one thing about them is that they have tannins, and so for people with allergies and things like that, you don't even want to touch it at all. And
Okay.
honestly, I wouldn't make it a staple in my diet, only because there's many other less dangerous, better tasting herbs in the garden, and that is mostly used for its root, like to get the medicinal properties, right? So in cases, yeah, so you just, some people are allergic to tannin, so maybe add a couple leaves in your salad. But I would, honestly, I let them grow because they're beautiful and they have flowers and the bees and butterflies and everyone loves them. But like a rose geranium is more edible, right? Or even medicinal, or even the citronella one. They call it citronella for the most part in grocery stores, but it's not a true citronella. True citronella is a grass. So it's a citronella scented or lemon geranium, right? And that's they sell them as like bug repellents. But yeah, they're both medicinal. I don't eat them just because I don't have to, I guess.
No, fair enough. Fair
so
enough.
I like to, at least while I can, I focus on the more delicious ones. Like, to me, yellow dock is super delicious, chickweed super delicious, purslane is super delicious. I like to mix it in with peppery stuff like daisies and shepherd's purse. But it depends on what's growing, right? So my salad, I can't get used to something that I love for too long because it's not going to grow that much longer, right? And while I still have dandelions and plantains and my shady spots, and it's like around 90 degrees or 88 or this and that now, but once it hits, 95 regularly and 100, I'm not going to have dandelions and plantains to choose from. So I pick my salad based on what's most abundant and growing at that time because I believe that nature wants that in my body right now.
Okay, fair enough. So the next thing that I did come to on the list here that looked sort of attractive, is the what is it called? Broadleaf plantain, actually.
Plantains are awesome.
Well, here's the thing about plantains, though. Some people, if you use that word, they think you mean what's effectively a small banana, right? That's not what this is. So,
right. Yeah, no, it doesn't look anything like a banana.
No.
But it is an excellent wound healer, and people I know personally who wanted to quit smoking used plantain to help them. So yeah, it's great for skin and wounds. I put it in my salads. You can make a tea with it. You can make oils with it. You can make, of course, vinegars. We've talked about that. It's a traditional remedy for like coughs. Yeah, so, and wounds, like if you're out in the wild and you cut yourself or something and you don't see any yarrow or whatever right there, but you see plantains, that's going to be excellent to put on your skin immediately. And then, of course, being like a natural antibacterial and all of that stuff, it can help fight whatever. Never mind, just like all the rest, it'll support a healthy immune system and heart issues. And like dandelions are chock full of vitamins and nutrients and minerals and fiber. So I would definitely, and they have no flavor. Like if you're wondering, should I taste it? Is it going to be gross? Because some people, if you eat like a mature dandelion leaf and you're like, oh, that's really bitter. This is
a little
gross.
bitter, yeah.
You're not going to taste anything with a plantain. And even with the bitter herbs, once they're all mixed in a salad with, say, like I mentioned earlier, blue cheese, walnuts, apples, you know, and you're not going to taste the individual leaves at all.
Right. Well, apples are an interesting thing, too, because they grow in abundance. It's fascinating to me how much people pay for them sometimes because, frankly, in a lot of places, apples can grow wild pretty easily.
They're getting pretty pricey out here. What are you guys paying for apples out there?
Well, I have not bought apples in a while. I have tons of them. I haven't bought them. So that's the thing. I don't know. But the last time I went to go buy them, I said, whoa. That was last year, I think. And I thought it was kind of pricey for this little bag of apples. But anyway, apples are something that are useful. Now, a lot of people think of them as a high nutrient fruit. It's not bad, but really it's not the most nutritious of fruits, although, again, they are easily sustainable in most climates and things like that. And there's a variety of them to where you could add little pieces of them into your salad and get a little bit of that flavor and not have it become like an apple salad. Although nothing wrong with an apple salad if that's what you want.
You kind of got to be careful with apples lately because they've been genetic modifying many of them, and then some have been modified to or engineered to have like higher sugar contents. And I mean, I haven't seen it for a while, just basically because where I live, we don't have access to any food at all. But when I was in cities and stuff like that, they have like bubblegum flavor apples, like individually wrapped and
that's weird
stuff like that. So I definitely wouldn't suggest using one of those varieties for your healthy medicinal salad.
Right. Now, look, you got to be careful with all these things anymore that are not growing wild necessarily because they could be tampered with. I mean, it could be anything from what do they call those, Terminator seeds, right? Where they just don't, there's a seed, but it doesn't do any good or something like that. And it's all weird. You got to be careful with all of it. But when you find stuff growing wild, well, generally you don't have a problem, right? That's
right.
But, you know, and here you go. I know there's plenty of places that there's just wild apples that grow.
Wow.
You know,
that would be neat.
Yeah, it's not bad. Now, some of them are not so tasty. The little like really itty bitty green ones, some of them are okay and some of them are not. And to tell you the truth, visually, I don't know how to tell them apart. But it's like a slightly different skin and but very similar colors. The green ones, the little ones. I think people call them crab apples a lot of times.
Yeah.
But anyway. There's all sorts of little things like this that could be around depending on where you are. And the funny thing is, it could be grown in a piece of, again, be careful about whose property you're on. All right.
Yeah, especially when you're in the Ozarks or other country places.
Well, you know, I mean, listen, there's plenty of signs that say, I will shoot you here in Georgia, too.
Dude, but most people, like, when I first moved here and there were no weeds in my yard, like I asked everyone I knew, can I go pick your weeds? And most of them will look at you funny, but they're happy. They're like, please take these off my hands.
Yeah, take some of them, right.
They're happy to oblige. Just ask permission, and I don't think there's anyone who's going to say no.
Right, and it's interesting how people do plant trees in odd places sometimes too.
Right.
You'll find a tree that doesn't necessarily seem like it belongs. Somebody purposely put that in there.
Yeah, or dropped a seed, or just something that's rare. Like around here, there's legends of the wild lemon tree. And I know 3 people personally, no, 4, who have seen him and supposedly know where 1 or 2 still exist, but yeah, I'm sure things like that exist everywhere, especially in the forest. We have wild persimmons growing everywhere, and like I mentioned last week, the nuts, and yeah, so the more you're in nature, the more you're going to find that. In fact, when I lived in Florida, I found a wild orange tree. It was amazing. And huckleberries, and oh my God, I love them so much.
Well, see, and yet another thing that can be added into a salad, maybe a lot of people don't think about it because they understand I could put raisins in there, but there's a lot of berries that could be added.
Every berry. I love putting berries and nuts, or like I said, I just think apples and pears go really well with blue cheese, and I'm on a blue cheese. I just certain times a year I crave certain things and I listen to it. So right now I'm making my blue cheese and my delicious garlic croutons, and it gives me the bulk, But here, look, if you need to put bacon in your salad to eat your salad, do it. If you need to put chicken in your salad to eat your salad, do it. And you know what? As you mentioned earlier, not every salad has to have greens. That's so true. Right. One of my favorite things to do in the summer season, like I'm already starting to feel it, but like come August and September, I'm going to be eating, I don't even know what to call it, but I just mix up my salsa with chopped up avocado, and I'll put corn, or if I'm not lazy, I'll roast it, and black beans, or even pinto beans, whatever beans, I happen to have, and mix that all up, and, sprinkle some chips on it for some crunch, and it's heavenly, and it is so filling. And sometimes if I made, say, maybe enchiladas or something, and I made some Spanish rice or whatever, I'll even throw the rice in that delicious, I don't know, salad, whatever you want to call it. And the only greens really is the cilantro that's in the salsa, right?
Well, no, there's all that. I mean, and let's not forget that a tomato is a berry, so because people do put tomatoes in their salad. Now, I think they put too many in because it's a little too much, and they're heavy on seeds.
I only like them in salad sometimes.
Yeah, not too often.
And I don't mix my fruit. Like, I don't put apple and tomato in the same salad. That's just weird to me.
Yeah, well, it's a little too much, I think. It's
almost as bad as eating eggplant.
We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that at some point.
You had to be here last week to get that dumb joke.
That's all right. I was trying to convince Christie that eggplant is great, and she thinks no. So we're gonna see what happens.
But I'm gonna grow some anyways, just to try to prove you wrong. But you'll end up proving me wrong, and it'll be my favorite thing. And then I'm gonna be a eggplant farm.
Well, listen. If not, feel free to ship them to me. Okay, we'll figure. I'll take them.
Totally, absolutely.
Because I love
people. Like last year, I had a whole bunch of pears, and I won't this year, unfortunately, but absolutely. If the eggplant works and I get some, I'll totally ship you some.
Yeah, definitely. I would be interested. I can find 100 uses for eggplant, so I'm happy to eat it. Anyway, so
sauce, cheese, grease.
Of course, that too.
That's it. It's got one use.
Yeah, but no, it doesn't. All right, but I'm telling you, you can do your lasagna without the noodles. Use the eggplant. It can be done.
It was fun teasing you.
It's cool. It's cool. I mean, and you can roll it into different things too. I like those. Some people do them, and they cook it a certain way, and you come up with like a spiral-looking thing because you roll the eggplant, you cut it long ways.
Yeah,
sliced
it's
thin.
all cute and stuff. Fancy.
Hey, it's tasty. Okay. Anyway, what can I say? All right, so
That's funny.
but going back to this with the different greens. Now, not necessarily has everything got to be eaten either. There are other uses for some of this stuff, like you were talking
and
about.
I wanted to talk more about plantains because we just kind of got off on another topic. But when we mentioned, I'm glad you brought them up, because when I mentioned, let's look at what's growing next to dandelions, plantains are almost always there.
Right.
I don't know why, I don't know how, but it doesn't matter where I've lived, plantains are almost always right next to dandelions.
Right. Okay, here's a weird question, though, that I just got on Skype. And I haven't been looking at the chat room. I hope you guys are not asking a ton of questions there, but I'll try and wind it back when Christie's talking next time. Because I got this odd question in Skype. There is the flower that grows a lot of times near dandelions, but they have the little puffy things that you pick them up and you blow them in the wind. Okay, I know what he's talking about. It's those like white puffy. You ever see the white?
That is a dandelion that has already flowered and gone to seed.
Right. So I was going to explain that the leaves are the same as the other dandelion leaves, right? Christy, are you there?
Oh, well, it's the same plant.
Yes,
it's just
the same
it used
plant,
to be
yeah.
a yellow flower, and then it closed up, and then turned into a seed head, and then now that puffy cloud is 1,000 seeds that can be 1,000 plants next time they're ready to grow.
Right. But people do have fun picking them and just blowing them, blowing the seeds around, and well, that's fine too. They can naturally get knocked around.
Make a wish, or he loves me not.
Sure. No, but that was the question there, is they wanted to know what they were, and we answered that. They're a dandelion also. They just, so it's
just
the same plant.
further in its stage of maturity.
Right.
So at that point, the leaves are definitely going to be longer and perhaps more bitter.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think all traditional cultures, whether Ayurveda or whatever, suggested bitter herbs as a regular part of your diet, and dandelion does fit the bill for that. So,
right.
Like I said, if you don't like the flavor, stick it in your burger, throw it in your soup. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many ways to get the nutrition without actually tasting it.
Right. Well, and we talked about that too with the vinegar. You don't really taste. You can taste the herbs a little bit, but mainly you still taste the vinegar. I mean,
Right. So yeah, if you're somebody who just like, oh my God, I cannot taste greens, they're disgusting. Well, you know what? Then turn them into a tincture, or dry them and turn them into a tea, or even fresh as a tea, or just throw some in your cooking here and there, in your herb cheese focaccia or whatever, right?
Right. Well, that's another thing is, people pay for cheeses with a lot of these herbs sprinkled on it. You wouldn't believe what some of them are. They're very common bitter herbs that are added to the cheese.
Right. So,
yeah.
I mean, we have them growing in our yard.
Right. A lot of those little speckles.
Sure everybody does at some point who has a yard.
Right. A lot of those little
even
speckles.
A sidewalk crack, right?
Mm-hmm. No, but a lot of those little speckles, I'm just saying, are very common weeds that, you probably couldn't give away to somebody else, but because it's sprinkled in your cheese, now it, doubled the price of the cheese. It's just one of these.
Well, they actually sell dandelions and purslane, like in fancy grocery stores and health food stores. And I'm talking like the fresh picked up, as an herb, like in those little packages that they put the quarter of an ounce or something of cilantro, or you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Right. Even I saw at some health food store in South Carolina, like bunches. They're tied up with a fancy little label, and you'll pay as much for like a couple dandelions picked, and not the root, but to the root, as you would for a bunch of beets or something. It's insane.
Right. So something else I take notice of, because I went back over to the tab that had the list from Liquid Lawn over there. I was looking at Shepherd's Purse, which does not look all that friendly.
Oh, it's delicious.
Well, see, that's the thing. I know it's got flavor, but it doesn't look all that friendly. Now, somebody might look at that and go, how am I supposed to eat that? Look, all these things can be ground up, first of all, if you wanted to sprinkle it a bit. You don't have to just, eat the stem, okay? Because that's another thing that some people are turned off by, is the idea of eating a stem. I don't like stems either. And
I'm not a fan.
I keep trying to tell my weed guy that. But the point is that I don't really want to eat the stems, although when I get them like that, I do eat the stems. But, anyway.
Again, then dry it and make a tea. But
Right.
you could just sprinkle some of the little, pokey seed. I'm sure that's what you're looking at, right? It just doesn't look friendly to harvest kind of thing.
Well, it's got a stalk. It's
But
got
just grab a stem or twig, right, with all the little seed pods or flowers starting, and then run your hand up it and drop them all in your salad. And they have like a nice kind of spicy-ish brassica family tasting, yummy, sweet, bitter, peppery flavor, Yeah, so you don't really need that much. You can eat the stems, but I'm not a fan, like yourself, really,
Right.
of any stems. And even with my teas, my herbs, my oils, my tinctures, like most people, they throw the stem and everything and just put it all in there, and I don't. I take every single leaf off the stem and get the full, medicinal value, because that's where, when the plant's producing, that's where it's at. It's in the flower, it's in the leaves. Like the stem is a vehicle.
Right, but the stem is perfectly useful for adding to that compost we were talking about.
Absolutely.
That's the
or
thing.
a tincture or a tea, right?
Right.
But it's also excellent for wound healing. But for wound healing, I would use it as like a compress or turn it into a salve. But I do, when I have shepherd's purse, and I do right now, I have a ton of it, and I love it. A little bit of that goes in my salad every day.
Okay, fair enough. So
Yeah, or you could just, if you don't want to just pull them off, you could just get your scissors and snip, 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 snip.
Yeah, no, there's lots of different ways to do it. Just depends on how chunky you want it. And I say there's never anything wrong with, again, adding
I
it to
gotta
a...
have chunks in my salad, man.
I got you, but look, not everything has to be chunky either. You can put some things in powder form. You can put some things in straight up raw form. A couple other
Right.
things, you could treat them a little bit.
Liquid.
You know, some things, frankly, if you take them and you sort of freeze them, okay, it changes the texture a little bit. And you can just add them frozen, let them thaw into the salad so that they come out straight up frozen. But they thaw into the salad. They add a little bit of liquid. The liquid usually gathered will also permeate the bowl a bit, right? So, I mean, there's lots of different ways to treat these things, is all I'm saying. Christy, can you believe we've actually been through an hour?
No.
Well, we have, and mostly talking about salads, but we did touch upon weeds and what could somebody do. Okay, I see some stuff around me. Let me try and identify it. Christy gave you a formula to do that. Now, at all times before you're deciding to ingest anything, especially, but ingest or expose yourself to even natural things, depending on your circumstance. As you said, you know, somebody could say universally grapefruit juice is great, but you're on the wrong heart medication, it will kill you.
Right.
So, you
Garlic,
know, garlic, which...
apples, even any of these herbs, you know, a lot of them, they have tannins and coumarins and yeah.
Yeah,
You just
so you have to...
know before you try any of this.
Well, be mindful.
If you're not here for strictly entertainment purposes.
Yeah, exactly. If you're going to try anything, educate yourself and be fully self-aware. Because, again, everybody is an individual, and As I said at the beginning of the show, it seems like a lot of things are universal, and indeed they are. We have a common thread where we could say, look, everybody should eat some fruit. Fruit is an absolutely great thing to eat, but, if you're in that diabetic condition, maybe not so much. And maybe you have an allergy, and maybe there's a lot of factors could come in here, and also interaction with other things that you're either taking that are natural or not. Usually the not side is the problem, but because honestly most natural things work together nicely, but you have to be aware in every single one of these decisions you have to take into account your own individual circumstance and condition. So anyway, Christie Aphrodite's with me. We're going to take a little break, and we might go beyond salad and weeds and everything else, but then again, we might stay there. I guess you're going to have to find out on the other side of the break. And before we go to break, just want to say, excuse me, if you go to mytrueessence.net, there are products there that Christie sells, but you can also just take a look around, get some interesting information, all that. And also at ChristieAphrodite.com. Those are two great places to get some information. But as we said, there are lots of resources, and use and observe them all. Anyway, stick around. The Ocelli Effect will be right back.
Most underrated voice in all media. Chuck Ocelli.
Second hour of the Ocelli Effect begins now at Ocelli.com. Of course, you could be some other time, some other place, so I do appreciate you for tuning in. And look at that, my microphone is not facing the right direction. Now it is. All right, anyway, Christie Aphrodite is with me, and of course, we talk about many natural things during the time that she's usually on, which is now. In the 9 o'clock hour here on a Tuesday, second broadcast day of the week for the show. But we started an hour early, so if you missed it, you're going to have to go back in the archive and get it later, because we're live here on a Tuesday. But added attraction, Christie's with me, and we're going to take calls if you guys feel like calling in, and if not, we'll just sit here and talk to each other. We can do that too. So either way, if you want to join in, 319-527-5016. That is 319-527-5016. I'm going to post it in the live chat room at Ocelli.com as well when I turn it kind of back over to Christie and see what she has to say. That way I'll have time to type. There you go, fourth wall break. But here we are. And you can join in that way one more time, 319-527-5016. And usually, when I open up the lines, I tell you, add anything in you want. I'd like to stay on topic with Christie here, okay? That's the only, little prerequisite caveat, as it were, right? Anyways, so Christie, we were talking about salads. We were talking about the weeds around you. We were talking about things that you might find growing wild. I got to throw one weird thing at you that I've seen recently, and I'm not sure what to make of them. There are these, they keep saying they're oranges, okay? And they've gone out in mass in the food banks here in Georgia. And really, I've opened them up and looked at them, and they're not oranges. They're kind of like oranges, but they have like, it seems to me like somebody crossbred oranges and lemons, and they don't taste very good. And they don't have a lot of juice. Okay.
Well, I'm actually growing a variety like that. It's a Panamanian orange, and it has more vitamin C than all the other traditional ones, including lemons.
Okay.
And very sour, and, people basically use them as lemons.
Yeah, they're very sour, very dry.
They could be oranges.
Yeah.
Right.
But they keep trying to tell the people at the food banks here that they're oranges.
Well, turn them into juice or lemonade, or use them to marinate your chicken or make your salad dressing or something like that, right?
Yeah, no, I'm saying there's always a use for this kind of thing, but, I mean, I like to eat a juicy orange, that has a sweet flavor to it. There are uses for the peels, by the way. I mean, the obvious one is the compost and all that, which we've talked about, but also...
And as bug repellents, like getting slugs away, and you can dry the peel. I mean, you could use the fresh peels, like put them in vinegar and use them as a cleaner, or use the dried peels, or even turn them into a tincture for your orange food flavoring, right? It's super versatile, all the things.
Well, also...
we can do. Ask them what kind they are, though, because I'm super curious. I didn't know that they had sour oranges in our current food supply. That's why I got these Panamanian ones.
Yeah, they do have these things. It's just that most people are not sure what to do with them, and so I've been gifted some of these.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, you like chicken or something, right? Like juice or squeeze a bunch of those and marinate them in that with a little bit of wine and garlic, or turn them into a salad dressing.
Oh, no, listen, automatically white wine, garlic, and a little bit of this juice that you can squeeze out of these things is useful right away. Yeah,
ceviche, if you can get some nice fresh shrimp or something like that marinated in there. Oh, man, that sounds heavenly.
Right. Yeah, and so somebody said in the chat room that food bank food is interesting. Weird trends in the Georgia food bank food that I've seen, again, because I've been gifted this stuff. And I'm not kidding, by the way. I got like 4 crates of it the other day because I mentioned I was having a little trouble going to the grocery store, and somebody said, well, I got this stuff, and I'm not going to use it.
Man, that's a shame.
Well, I took it.
There really is a use for everything, and
but they have for some reason they have a lot of walnuts in the supply here, and they have
nice.
And they have a ton of these oranges, again, I'm talking about. Plus, by the way, apples.
I gotta start going to food banks, because I would love to be given. Nuts are expensive, even like the local ones, like $17 for one small Ziploc bag. Yeah,
and apples are included in the Georgia food bank system a lot of times too. So, just telling you, this is one of those things.
And I'm glad to know they're giving you good food and not just, like spam.
No, I mean, look, there's also some stuff in there that I'm not good, but I'm just saying they do have a couple of natural things that are fresh, and it works. What can I say? I
did get the chance to read some of the chat, and I just want to say this one funny comment says, eating wild edibles and lawn clippings always tastes like shit. I'm not eating that crap unless the shit hits the fan. And so, I mean, the reason why we're talking about this stuff is that we really should be comfortable with it, at least, in case that does happen, right? And I'm definitely not advocating long clippings, but the medicine, weeds are food and medicine, and hopefully, we don't ever have to eat it, right? Like, it's the only thing there. But if it is, I would rather know what I can eat, or what I can combine, or what I could use it for, and I'm thankful to be here to be able to discuss these things and hopefully, get people thinking about it. Because, look, if they lied about everything else, and we've proven every show we've talked about that they lied even about weeds, right?
Right.
So if you could save doctor and dentist visits and drugs and this and that, with what's growing around you, I think that's pretty cool.
Well, and the thing is, with how expensive the grocery store is, if you want to rely on that all the time, okay, I get it. But, honestly, if you can knock a couple of days out of the month even with stuff that's growing around you, you're better off. The best circumstance is to do what you're doing, basically, Christie, which is grow your own food, which, by the way, I invited somebody on who's building a greenhouse right now that's, knocking around the network. He's building a greenhouse for himself, and he's just like, look, it's the only thing that makes sense to do, and a lot of people are getting that sense.
That's why I had to bite the bullet and go further into debt to build that greenhouse. Yeah. it's an investment, right?
Right.
Food, people don't think of food and herbs and weeds as an investment, but I mean, just look at the prices, of food, as
Right.
you've mentioned. Like, is it not really? You're kind of. I like hedging my bets and inflation with having my own food, and if people get used to the idea of eating seasonal and local, like I'm eating the best strawberries of my life right now.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? A week from now, I'm not going to have any more strawberries until next year.
Right.
Just like I haven't tasted a watermelon since last summer. And, so
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about watermelon, actually, because that's one of those things. Now, again, I'm in a slightly different climate from you, so watermelon's coming up here at this point already.
I'm so jealous.
So it's happening, but, you go and you pay for these things. They're double the price they were last year, easily.
How much are they this year?
Well, I saw, watermelons at about $6 for not a large watermelon. Like, I'm talking about the little ball ones, for like $6.
I paid $12 last year.
Yeah.
But I don't buy seedless, and I only buy them from one person because they grow them. They have massive greenhouses and start them in February.
Right. Well, see, now, if you're to get those right now, you're talking about probably about that price range. But again, Georgia's usually cheaper on this kind of stuff.
I'm scared to go when, I think I'm going to go this week, and I'll let you know if they're more than they were last year.
My guess, based on what I'm seeing from these guys who like literally show up with a pickup truck full of them, is that you're probably looking at, if it was $12 last time, it'll be $15. That's
I bet, because the price of gas, and a lot of people, especially even here, when you see watermelons on the side of the road before July or August, they pick them up either from Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, Texas, and brought them here. So, I can imagine the prices would increase.
Yeah, and especially at the beginning of these things emerging, and then as the season gets toward a close, you find a time period where they go cheap for a minute. But the grocery stores are not going to lower their prices. It's going to be the guys who are literally harvesting them themselves that are now looking at them going, if I don't get rid of all of these quickly, that's what they're going to look to do right before the season gets sparse, and then they're going to come in with the expensive ones again. See, this is not like a flat line.
Because this is in season, they're growing there now, and how much prices is it increased, and gas and stuff, even driving one state away, how much are they going to cost when they're not in season and they're shipping them from South America?
Yeah, I think that seeing California is a good example of this kind of stuff. I think I think the guy in California said $20 in California in the chat room. I think he's talking about a watermelon. I'm not sure, but could be. And I'm not surprised at all. Anyways, like I said, the phone lines are open. I'm going to go check those now and see if anybody is on the line. They're not, but if you wanted to join us, 319-527-5016. You could tell us what it is you're seeing, what it is you're paying for stuff, what it is you think you could grow. But the reason why I brought up the watermelons is because it's not really that hard to grow them.
No, nothing really is. It's nature's doing it, right?
Yeah.
We just have to give it the right soil and space.
Right, like I talked about.
Gratitude, man. That's the number one ingredient to everything. Even in crappy soil, you can grow things with gratitude.
No, absolutely.
Look at the Hopis, and growing their corn on months of no rain and.
No, there's ways of doing this, and we talked about pumpkins too, because that's going to come up pretty soon. If somebody really wanted to start to lay their seeds in some parts of the country, it's a good time to get that going, because you're going to have them for the fall. Okay.
I'm glad you said pumpkins, because that came up the other day on Twitter, and somebody was complaining about how she's never been able to grow pumpkins. And so I'm going to give you all a pro tip. throw a pumpkin in your compost heap in the fall and let them grow themselves there, because they will grow and they will be the healthiest you have ever seen. So if there is anything that you think you can't grow, just throw that fruit or squash or whatever in your compost and just let nature do it. Just saying, okay? Because I know I constantly see people frustrated with what they can't grow, you know, in their designated beds, right? And even I've had problems before, like back in the day, and I had this cool built compost bin, but these tomato plants found a crack out and started growing themselves. And dude, if they were not healthier, that was like 15 years ago. Right. And that was my introduction to Mother Nature being smarter than man, and to stop planting in rows and trying to control it, you know? But yeah, so anything you think you can't grow, just throw the fruit in your compost heap and just back off.
Right. Well, and that's the beauty of it. And I'll tell you something, the people that make jack-o'-lanterns out of pumpkins definitely take all those guts and put them right on in. You don't got to do anything to them. Just put them in the compost, because remember I talked to you about the guy who got mad at me because he grew 15 different things when I told him how to make compost, and he was trying to grow one thing. Well, all this stuff sprouted up at different times a year, and it's like, well, duh, it was in your compost. Well, that's not what I wanted to do. All right. Well, he ended up happy with it, but pumpkins were one of the things that came up in that mess, because we had taken a rotten pumpkin. You know, somebody had a pumpkin, they just sat it outside and, drew a face on it so it wouldn't rot fast, whatever. And so we took this pumpkin, which was already starting to decay, and, broke it into a couple of pieces and put it in the compost.
Right.
And it worked.
Yeah, there's even people in, gardening groups where they're like, there was a squash coming up, and for the life of me, I have no idea what it is or how, and then they remembered that they just let a pumpkin rot in a certain part of their yard. Well, now they're going to have a gazillion pumpkins.
Well, there you go. And gourds, again, we talked about gourds too, of all kinds, the different things that we talked about squash and the different types of squash. Well, not all the different types, but we just mentioned.
Chazahowitzka, I lived in the place of the hanging pumpkins. That's a Seminole squash, right? Pumpkins are squash.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, okay. So, but these are a variety of things. So everything from the dandelion to the pumpkin. Here you go. If you add it back in, we talked about adding the stems back in. That's not a bad idea. And of course, you talk about your 30%, right? Where that's about what you should take, is take a third of it away to use it, right? Make sure you leave a third of it there for sure, always, right? When you're wild foraging, or when you're harvesting an herb or something, I mean, your food is, you don't have to put a number on that, but the for sure 30% is expect to give it back to nature, right? So the deer, the armadillos or squirrels or birds or things like that, right? Yeah. So I guess that's technically two 30% rules. Right.
Yeah.
Although I got to tell you...
And I do want to say there was some gun discussion in your text chat.
Okay.
And so I'll just say I would not be able to grow any of this or have livestock without a gun. And so if people want food, I mean, think about it. Even vegans, and I'm not knocking it. I used to... live that lifestyle, and I don't anymore. Not that there's anything wrong with it, especially if you're doing it the right way with the right reasons. But packaged food, and saying you're saving the planet, but then shipping food from South America to Finland in the winter, how many people die on the way? So first of all, the farmers have to kill the deer that are eating the apples off the tree, right? Or they have no crops and they have no money. Then they have, you know what I mean? And then how much roadkill on the way. Just imagine state to state how much roadkill transporting these, you know, fruits and vegetables to you that, you know, we're not really thinking about. So the reality is nature is sometimes kind of harsh and cruel.
Yeah.
And there is so much roadkill out there all the time. Never mind how many animals the farmers have to kill to protect their lettuce or their strawberries or this or that. And, you know, what are you going to do when a wildcat is trying to eat all your chickens, which is your food supply, whether you're eating the chicken or not? Like in my, you know, I like eggs, okay? So I'm not going to be able to protect them from a mountain lion with Kumbaya or by calling the cops that are an hour away. So I get that guns are like a hot topic, but people have to really think clearly. You would have no food without guns, and I am not about to give up my family, right? I've already lost at least 3 dozen animals just since I've lived here, okay? So, and if I have to shoot a coyote to keep them off my ducks or whatever, it's gonna happen. It just end the story, period. So, yeah, and I don't shoot animals to protect my garden, although, well, that's not true, entirely true. I have fantasized about it, but I didn't because I would have had nobody to give the meat to. So I chose to do night patrol all night, which I'll have to be doing here in July and August again to protect my crops, okay? They don't just grow. Everybody wants to eat them. So I literally have to stay up all night or take an hour or 2 nap. I have radios blaring, lights everywhere, and go out there and literally patrol my garden and send people away, deer and things like that I don't want to kill. Armadillos don't listen. They die. Sorry. They will not leave. No barrier method I have ever tried. And after 2 months after I first got here and having to go out there every morning crying, replanting everything, all of my little babies, my bare roots, dropping new seeds and having them destroyed every day, they died. And they died with a gun because you can't catch them in a cage. And so, sorry I went off on that rant, but people are kind of clueless, thinking that it's a tool to protect my food supply because I care about what I eat, and I'm not about to give up and go to Walmart because somebody says, you know, guns are bad, okay? So, yeah.
Fair enough. You know, look, I can't object to the use of a tool anyway.
I work hard for what I do, and I don't get paid. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I work hard for my food, and giving up because of the war out there with everyone that wants to eat it is not an option. And you know what? Here's the truth. I don't have the luxury to just go to a grocery store and buy what I want anyways. Why? Because I don't make money. My labor goes to this investment in building the future so that I can go outside and eat these weeds and these trees and these nuts and these berries and things and make my medicine because I can't go out there and afford it in stores like the rest of the entitled people that think people like me shouldn't have guns or your farmers. Again, no food without guns.
Right, and again, it's a matter of it's a tool anyway, and you know.
Yeah, I'm not even getting into the political part of it or this and that, but people just have to seriously think, again, if that apple farmer or that pecan orchard farmer can't, and they're monocrops in a lot of these farms, right? So when you get, they're after one, they get them all. So yeah, they have to do night patrols too, right? Animals die. So
it's just the way it is. And what is the better alternative? Well,
I
some
don't
people.
like it.
No, I know you don't like
I
it.
almost cry for every roadkill I see, and I don't like it, but it is what it is. And when we're talking about guns and instead, I thought we're trying to talk about things that are supposed to help people, but there was that big discussion there, and so I felt that it kind of fits in. It is appropriate because there is no actual real food and medicine without guns.
Fair enough. The reason why the guns come up is because I'm going to talk to Glenn on Thursday about guns and NATO and what's going on over there in Sweden. He's going to give me a European perspective. So, but no, I totally get where you're at.
And a European farmer perspective. How about that?
Yeah, well, there's another thing. And I'll tell you, look, it's insane if somebody says, you shouldn't have a shotgun or a rifle on your farmland. I mean, that's just insanity.
Right. And it's not only that, again, the fact that you can't even protect yourself by calling cops because we're an hour away. Like, it's not the same in places like this as it is in cities. Like,
no, of course not.
Crackheads or people trying to make meth on your property in the springs. You know what I mean? There's lots of crazy stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I understand. No, it's just that that's I think where that discussion started. But of course, it is the topic of the day. It is in people's minds, and it's not a black and white issue, no matter which way you're coming at it, though. As far as I'm concerned. So, and we have to consider all of this.
Right.
Again,
food and medicine's my thing, and I just need to make it very clear. I would not be able to do what I'm doing without a gun.
Well, and that's another thing too, is that there are some people that don't produce their own stuff, but they believe in the stockpiling, idea, the prepper mentality. And look, I don't object to it, but I will tell you that there's a bit of a flaw in there, because look, you stockpile that stuff and you make yourself known as the stockpiler. You're not likely to hold on to all that. You're better off having something that reproduces. Because, tell you something, I can get a gun too, and
let me tell you something.
Maybe I can go take it. No,
okay,
but yeah.
And there was a time in my life where I did because I, feared things, but learning about wild edibles and how to do without and make use of what's around me took away my need to do that. Plus, when people are stockpiling, they're, again, promoting more of the drama that's going around because, number one, they're buying it in fear. Number two, who are they buying it from? The same people creating the panic and the fear and the poisons, right? And then they go and complain about the poisons, but you just stockpiled it all. Like, you know what I'm saying? So,
no, I got you.
In my opinion, like, true preppers and people like that would, and if you don't have a garden or you don't have space for it, I get that. Know what's around you. Know what's growing naturally. It's your peace of mind alone. We've had lots of discussions about like heart issues, depression, stress, anxiety, trauma, just the knowing that you can take care of yourself if you can't get to the store, and that you don't have to grab a gun and shoot your neighbor who bragged about his stockpiles or whatever, right? That people fear. Like, no nature.
No, I absolutely, I'm with you. I mean, now, same time, look, it sounds like there was an absolute statement made there, right? But here's the thing, I'll add to the absolute statement. It is not wrong to have a bit of a backup, okay? It's not wrong to have, like, in other words, when things went a little weird here for a bit and, you couldn't go to the store to get stuff because whatever was going on, it was good that I had some of my own supply. But I would not say to stock it up to an extreme where, you have, like, I have 2 years worth of, no, don't do that. But I mean, to have a bit of a backup if you can is a good thing to do.
Everybody should. I mean,
yeah.
even FEMA and all of those people tell you should have, a couple weeks supply. And you know what, Chuck? My food supply that I stockpiled based on fear back in the early 2000s came in handy when I ended up in a wheelchair, right?
Right.
Because I had a bunch of frickin' food. So, and when people lost their homes in Branson and the floods in 2011, like I had a bunch of stuff to give away. So, it did go to good use. But yeah, look, hurricanes happen, tornadoes happen, floods happen, power outages happen, things happen. So yes, everybody should be able to feed themselves, at least for a couple weeks without having to go to a store.
Oh, yeah, because, again, a hard lesson learned after being in a major hurricane area was because it was Hurricane Sandy that I lived through. And
Wow.
I was in one of those areas where, the neighboring town was, underwater and couldn't get, any power, any gas, any of that into a certain area. And also that means, by the way, your cell phones don't work, just so you know, mostly. Right.
Yeah, so you couldn't call for help even if you could.
So no calling for help, and it was a matter of, trying to communicate with the people on the ground right around you. And that means that you had to have some of your own water, because guess what? Water treatment wasn't too far away, and you were no longer getting clean water out of your tap either. All right? So, a whole bunch of things needed to be addressed there. Now, I didn't have enough to get by, but things emerged and I figured it out. But it would have been a lot better had I had a couple of weeks worth of stuff there, because we didn't expect power to be out and all that for many weeks. And oh, by the way, after 3 weeks of the power being out, it gets back on for like a couple of days, and then a massive snowstorm came through and did what? Knocked it all back out again. So it was like, oh, yay, I'm not, boiling everything in a pot over, fire. I know, foreign concept for a lot of people.
Right.
But literally...
People don't even know how to make fire these days. It's insane.
That was the thing, though, is I'm making stuff over fire. That was it. It was... Hey, we have the one fire, and I have some pans and some pots. But other than that, it was like, I'm kind of stuck. And that included boiling water and everything else, right?
Right.
But then, it came back on for a couple of days, and you go, okay, I can relax again. And it got knocked back out by this massive snowstorm. So, that's a true story, by the way. If you look at Ocean County in New Jersey.
Life happens. My friends just had the Texas thing over a year ago,
right.
A couple weeks without power. And they've never done anything like that or really prepared, but they found a way and they made it, and now they're more prepared. But I'm just saying, shit happens. So yes, every self-responsible person should definitely have enough to feed themselves and their loved ones for a duration in the event of any type of crisis, including a medical illness, right?
But the nicer thing is, of course, if you have things growing around you and you're aware of how to use them and what to use and et cetera, this is, look, it does no harm, even if you're thinking to yourself, no, I got a stockpile, I don't care what you just said. Okay, but it wouldn't harm you to know these other things, would it? So
I think both, man. Just find that balance, whatever works for you, whoever, wherever you are, right? And if you look, we're not all the same. Not everybody is supposed to do what I do, right? I'm not supposed to do what everyone else is doing. So in no means am I saying you all have to leave the city, move to the country, live like this, stockpile homemade herbs and plant hundreds of, things in your food forest because you're delusional and think you're going to feed people for centuries. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that. But you know what? If you truly don't have the time or ability to get to learn what's local, then make friends with somebody who does. And you know what? Share your skills too, right? Because a lot of these things I talk about, like, people expect me to be there, like, all the time to just tell them, and I'm just like, well, can you share something with me too? Like, I want, you know what I mean? I don't know everything. I want to learn things too, and yeah, so make friends with somebody who does, make friends with growers, share whatever your skill is, right? So that they want to share more with you, whatever they have, and just because people are growing doesn't mean that if 20 people moved in tomorrow, I wouldn't be able to feed them, or even 3 people. Like, I'm not even growing that much because, again, I am a one-man show, and most of what I'm building is for the future, right? Like the fruit trees that aren't going to produce for a while. The berries I'm just barely getting this year. The elderberries, I might get a handful this year, maybe a handful of, you know what I mean? They're like baby trees, bare roots, little ones I'm digging out on different parts of the property. So, do what you can, make friends with people who have skills that you don't.
Right.
And because everybody has a valuable skill, right? And those with valuable skills also want to share and trade with those with valuable skills, right?
All
so
right. That's why I love
whether it's weeds or, medicine making or these things we talk about here or flowers or, that doesn't have to be your thing.
Right.
But being kind of familiar. Like, if there was a situation like, Chuck, how would you start a fire? How would you cook your food? How would you even have food if you couldn't get to any for 2 or 3 days in your case, or 2 weeks in other people's cases, or even longer in other people's cases, right? So I think these are important questions that everybody should be asking themselves because, honestly, I mean... it's kind of weird to me that people don't think about how or what they're going to eat tomorrow. Like, it's your basic sustenance. Like, how can that not be one of your most basic situations you want to address on some level, right? So... do with it what you will based on everybody's individual circumstances, right? Again, nobody has to build a food forest. That's what weirdos like me are for, right? But weirdos like me, just because we have these skills, doesn't mean we have all those other cool skills that you guys have.
Well, see,
right?
and here's a good for instance. Just because you're the weirdo with the plants doesn't mean you don't have the weirdo next door that's raising the animals that will produce, the chickens and the goats and this kind of thing. Not necessarily even to eat the meat, but if you want to eat the meat, eat the meat. Point is that they're doing something else. Managing animals, a little different than managing plants. You can manage them together, but there are some people that have special skills with that. They know exactly how to, they don't need a vet ever because they know what to do. Stuff like this, you have, they know how to pair them up and this kind of thing. Again, managing the animals. You know that
animal husbandry is a special skill. I'm just learning, you know.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I have a gift with animals, but I don't have all the skills I need.
Well, no, you can live and love animals. You can live with and love animals all you want, but you might not know little tricks about which kind of rooster is best to put in with the chickens, because you need a rooster with the chickens. If you,
right, or which call is a male or a female, or little things like that.
Right. So here it is. So there, by the way, look, just because somebody knows how to manage the animals quite well, they might have a handle on how to build the pens and how to build, certain things that might be of value to you. So, different planting boxes and stuff like this could be built by somebody who just understands carpentry. and that happens to be their specialty. It doesn't mean that that's all they do, and it doesn't mean that you can't do a little bit of that too. Just like the guy with the animals, he might have, a garden or some crops. Matter of fact, he'd be smart to have a garden or some crops to feed those animals. The stuff that he knows exactly what went into it growing, right? So, just saying, these things are all a continuum, but some people might have specialties.
Right.
And it's all good to learn from each other. And in a time of crisis, again, or in a time of any sort of trouble, frankly, each of you could lend your skills or lend a little bit of resource or lend something that is built up a bit and assist each other. That was really the best part of what you told me about you had in mind when you moved to this place. Because I was like, wow, that's actually the kind of thing that I'd like to see done on a lot of levels. It's not necessarily just about the food supply, but everything could be done sort of this way in a voluntary fashion,
And should be, right?
Yes.
Like, you don't have to move to the country to make friends with your neighbors. Like, when I first started Project Love Your Neighbor, I lived in a city pretty much. I mean, outside the city proper limits, but it was a neighborhood, houses everywhere. People could hear me fart,
Right.
And so, yeah, like I'm definitely an advocate of checking with your neighbor first before you go to Walmart, before you go to any store, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are your neighbor's skills? What are your skills? Share yours. And don't make demands like, well, you have extra fruit trees, so you owe me this. Or you have these skills, so you owe me this. Come on, if that's true, like, how come you charge people at your work? So, like, freely give as much as you want to share and learn from others. And that's how you build a community, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can do that in the city. You can do that in an apartment building. You can learn who to call if you need somebody to get some tweezers and pull a thorn out or something like that, right? Most people don't even know their next door neighbors, and it's so sad. And that's another reason, like, hospitals and emergency rooms are clogged up. You know what I mean? Talk to your neighbor. Maybe they have an herb. Maybe they're a retired nurse. Maybe they have, right? Like, instead of going to the corporation to solve whatever problem you have, look for your neighbor that's struggling, trying to raise kids, and that's one of their skills, right? Whether they're a garage mechanic or a seamstress or a writer or a graphic designer. You know what I mean? Check with your neighbors first, please, or you can't complain about the consequences of a corporatocracy, okay? Because that's what people are doing. They're taking the easy way out. They're taking the comfortable way out. That's why places like Walmart are thriving, because you can get your tires and your eyes and your photos and your food and your clothes and your bank and your, but really, if people preach community, but are they living community? Are they supporting their community? Are they going to community-owned businesses? Are they calling their neighbor first, right? When they have an issue, whatever, your well or your septic or your plumbing or your painting or your whatever, your tree cutting or, call your neighbor first. If you don't know who can do those things, meet your neighbors.
That's always a good thing. I just really quickly, because we're almost out of time, believe it or not.
That's insane.
Almost through 2 hours here, and we wind up discussing community and reality and also leafy greens. So it's all good across the board. But one of the things that emerged, and people would not probably believe this, but oddly enough, in real life, if you deal with me, I'm actually not a bad sort of battlefield medic. So people have come to me in communities over the past few years that I was in. And guess what? Something is wrong, something is broken, I have a cut, I have a burn, and I have treated them. Okay. Now, I do this, and I have done this for neighbors, stuff like this. Tried to handle various situations and have successfully kept them from having to go visit the hospital, various times. And what happens is, I don't present them with a bill. All right.
Right.
But what'll
But
happen?
they might bring you eggs or something next week, or their homemade jam.
See, like all of a sudden I've got fresh chicken eggs because their chickens laid too many. Hey, listen, you did that for me. I wanted to come and give you this as a thanks, and I didn't ask for it, but that's what I got.
What a wonderful gift.
And stuff like that. And I'm like, well, that's great.
'Cause we work hard for chickens and keeping them alive,
Yeah.
mostly. That's the struggle, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I was completely wiped out last year, every single one. And so far, I've already lost 3.
Well, you're not having a good time of it, but I mean, eventually you'll get it so that you are, and probably you'll create an abundance where you'll have, much to.
Right. I'm just saying it's a gift because people underestimate the work that it actually takes to do that. And when people share their eggs or their salsa or whatever with me, I'm just like, dude.
See, and also
thank you, because I know how hard it is.
Right. And I'm also not good at making bread or cakes or anything like that. So I can cook stovetop, and I can cook in an oven too, but I know how to cook savory things. I don't know how to cook breads and anything with dough pretty much. I mean, honestly, I know how to make a pizza. Other than that, I don't.
It's so easy. Would it help if I gave you like a super simple, easy, no fail bread recipe?
Well, I'll tell you what, you can do that with me sometime. Matter of fact, maybe we'll talk about bread actually in one of these shows, because it is one of those things that is almost universally acceptable, and everybody tells me anybody can make it. I haven't found that to be my experience, but again, I turn around and I make sure that somebody doesn't have to go to the hospital and pay $1,000 to get stitched up because they cut themselves, whatever. Because I was able to put it together without having to even utilize the suture, but I know how to use the suture. So I did that. Well, what I ended up with was, listen, in some cases you got to use the needle and thread. I mean, there's just, no way around it. But I try to find lots of different ways around it, okay? And it depends on the circumstance, and I've been able to do that. So the reason why I bring it up is because, what I got for that one time is a bunch of bread.
Nice.
I was happy with that because I don't know. Now, look, I'm not saying I can't learn, but at the moment, I didn't have that skill. I'm not making my bread. I got to buy my bread, right? And bread is generally terrible here in the South. I got to tell you.
Isn't it expensive these days, man?
And expensive. But the thing is, if I take 5 minutes and I make somebody's life a little better and they don't have to go to the hospital or, call an ambulance, and then they visit me the following week and make my life a little better because now I don't have to figure out how to make the bread, I call it a fair exchange.
Yeah, that's definitely worth a couple loaves of bread.
You know what I mean? It's a good thing. I mean, granted, I probably saved them $1,000, but I'm not attaching the monetary value to it because it's ridiculous. You use even if I did have to go with the suture. I mean, those things. What are they going to cost me? $2? Okay, so $2 worth of material and 10 minutes of my time. No, you're going to pay the EMS guy or the emergency room guy $1,000. No, a couple loaves of bread, fair trade. So,
Absolutely.
and yeah. But anyway, I just bring that up as an example. But before we're all done, I want to remind everybody they can go to mytrueessence.net. We didn't really talk about stuff that's over there exactly today, although there are many elements over there within some of those products. And interesting ideas that people can get a hold of.
I got plantains. I harvested even more this week, and I use it in several of the products there, the wound creams, and soon there'll also be a tincture. I have oil, which this season I'll be adding more infused oils to the menu. Mm-hmm. But yeah, some things run out. I can only produce so much.
Right.
But yeah, that's where the things I put together end up going.
See, but also Christie does a lot of service for people if they want to go and explore and learn on their own. And ChristieAphrodite.com is a place you can go and get a bunch of references there. But also you put stuff on YouTube, as I mentioned earlier in the show. You put out, and we didn't even get to tease too much, tonight at all.
Twitter, Facebook, yeah. And it's not the same everywhere.
Right.
It's like whatever I feel like, or whatever I'm thinking about, or whatever I just took a picture of at that moment in the different avenues,
Right. No, I'm just saying that you freely offer information where people could explore it, learn how to do some of this stuff for themselves. Again,
every day,
yeah.
Even everyone who wants to come here and learn from me or do work trade, or absolutely.
Yeah, and
anytime.
I'm
open for everyone.
One of these days, when I can figure out how to do it, I'm gonna get over there to Arkansas and see you.
You have to. It's not that far.
It's not that far away, but it's just, I mean, as you well know, things keep coming up. And,
well, if Chuck has, I know, but you have to have, like, some listener, supporter who's in a better financial state that would pay for your gas to come out here for a week, and everything out here would be taken care of, right?
Well, yeah, but you see, the thing is, that would be.
I'm land rich but cash poor.
Well, and it would have to be, for three of us because, look, I can't drive. Kim can, and then obviously we can't leave the soon-to-be 8-year-old at home by himself. So we get
right, yeah.
It would be the three of us.
People kick down and get Chuck Ocelli to the Ozarks Church of Nature and Magical Food Forest, and we're hooked up for him to broadcast here, right? I still have all the equipment and everything. So if you don't want to carry yours.
Yeah, I could just use your stuff. Yeah.
I think a good vacation, like when have you just taken a break and not worried about what people are going to listen to today or how you're going to entertain people, like a full-on just peaceful break, best night's rest you've ever had, healthy, fresh-picked food, and you know what I mean? Cute animal cuteness. Ducks and goats are funny.
Oh, no,
Chickens
definitely.
are awesome.
Definitely. And I'd love to show Frankie more of that stuff. I mean, he's seen ducks and he's seen chickens, but I'd like to get him into an environment where, he can just hang out with them. As opposed to just getting a look at him.
Get Chuck and his family a healthy week's vacation. You deserve it after, a decade doing this daily?
Something like that, yeah. I took, I have taken a couple of times off, but it was just like absolutely necessary for rest, or I was forced because I had to wait for equipment to come in that had failed, but...
Right, you need an actual break. Like, seriously, people kick down and then Chuck can come back and be, more well-rested and do better for you, right? Like, you've had so many listeners all throughout these years. So, yeah, get him some gas money. Come out here and I'll take care of the rest. And
it would be so cool to come back and tell you some interesting stories and tell you about stuff I learned, because I guarantee I would learn. And that was the thing I was telling you about right there, is that, Christie puts out a lot of information. You can learn from it in various ways. Again, if it's just about making tea, well, you could have been on Twitter the past day or two, and she had a couple of quick videos there about making tea. But I mean, tinctures, medicine, different foods, things that are out in nature. I mean, just fascinating images of what grows together, all kinds of stuff out there. ChristieAphrodite.com. And of course, don't forget mytrueessence.net, which we did play a spot for during the break there. It took a little bit of a long break, but that's okay. Anyway, we're done for today. So come back next Tuesday. Okay, next Tuesday.
Thank you.
And this was great to do the 2 hours with you. I don't know if we always want to do two, but we always want to try and do one, at least for the foreseeable future, with Christie Aphrodite, because we can learn and live better and be with nature as opposed to punishing it like most things do. Anyway, the Ocelli Effect is finished, and I got to tell you guys, I am merely Ocelli. All of you are indeed the Effect. I'll be back tomorrow night with a show that I don't know how I feel about it exactly, but Addie Ads and Chris Graves will be with me, so it's going to be something. Anyway, till then, be well.